Jesus canopy. I think Julie has something to share with us.
Well, happy Father's Day to all you fathers out there. We have a special lady who had a birthday this week on the 19th, and we want to celebrate Shelley Wimmel. Well, Shelley's a lot of things for the church. First off, she is the pastor's wife, which is a huge responsibility to keep Jan in line. Did I say that?
It's not working very well.
And then she also is a wonderful song leader, pianist, organist. She does a lot of stuff in the office, also with the children's department, the website. She's pretty much a one-stop shop. So we just wanted to take a moment and tell her how much we love her and appreciate all that she does, and give her a little gift from us with love.
Thank you. And I'll have to say, Julie was all ready to do this last week, celebrate Shelley's birthday, but somebody jumped right up and started preaching and forgot what Julie said. I need to say something.
Thank you, Coles. Yay, shine, shine. Thank you.
All right.
I love you.
And also, this is Father's Day, so I'm going to give this basket to David Ray to make sure that he gets these out. So David, the basket's up here, wherever you're at out there somewhere. Oh, there he is. But these have gifts for our dads and our dads in training. So I think there's probably enough to give one to each guy. Start with the dads and then shoot them from there. And it says on there, CNC thinks our pops rock the best. And dads, there's Pop Rocks. Get a box of Pop Rocks. So I encourage you to put these in your mouth and take a big drink of Pepsi or Coke, dads. And the result will be exciting. But make sure you do it outside. And we want to honor our fathers on Father's Day and say thank you. And they're pretty awesome, and we think that. And we think you guys rock. And I think God thinks that you rock as well. So this morning, I'm going to take just a little hiatus from the book of Luke. You know, in Luke that we're in, we have been looking at Luke chapter 9, and we're going to get to that next week, back onto that next week. But today I want to read for you a little bit. I'll be reading out of the book of Proverbs chapter 3, and I encourage you to get there. But before we get there, I want to talk a little bit. This is Father's Day, and how many of you were alive when you remember the show Father Knows Best? Some of you, yeah, I see a few hands, hear a few horns. I actually don't believe I was. And if I'm not mistaken, Danny, what was his last name? Not Danny, Danny, who was it? It's Danny, the dark-haired guy. He's one of the sponsored St. Jude's. Anyway, so I believe he was the one that played Father Knows Best. Now, it's kind of interesting to me because in the culture that we live in, I don't know if a show like Father Knows Best could go on the air today. Could it? I mean, that would almost not even get off the ground. Because if you said Father Knows Best, when you look at pop culture, fathers don't seem to be valued the way they used to be in our culture. And I think that's kind of a problem. I think it's created a lot of issues for us as a culture. And it's sort of a double-edged sword because if you think about like shows that came after Fathers Know Best, you know, I'm just thinking of how are fathers usually portrayed in sitcoms and TV shows and those sort of things. I don't know that a lot of fathers are portrayed through culture and media in that positive of a light. You know, I think of, Carrie Underwood's song about, the one where she lets her dad die in a tornado. I mean, well, that doesn't seem like it ended well. I mean, I think of TV shows like, I can remember All in the Family and Archie Bunker. Okay, well, he was the dad figure, but he was sort of not seen as a very bright character and bigoted and racist. And then there's guys, later on we tried to redeem the role of fathers with a little TV show called Married with Children. Al Bundy, some of you may know who that is. That's actually the actor was a local from Youngstown. famous, made a lot of money portraying a father who just seemed to almost detest the whole role that he played as a father and as a husband. But then there's also the redeeming qualities of a TV show character like Homer Simpson, right? I mean, and Homer really portrays what we all would want in a father, right? No. There's a lot of shows, and there's a lot of culture, and there's a lot of disdain sort of in the culture that we live in, not only for fathers, but for the sort of the idea of fatherhood. And it's hard to think in terms of today what the culture, how the culture looks at dads. We don't, I mean, I think probably the last father we had was Father Knows Best, or maybe Ward Cleaver. I mean, he was portrayed as a guy that was a good guy, and he had a good relationship with his sons, and I don't know that fathers are valued today. God values fathers, though, and God values fatherhood. I got news for you. Dads aren't valuable because they're perfect. I've been a father for 24, going on 25 years, and I can tell you, and my sons will tell you, my wife will tell you, and I'll gladly tell you, even the dogs will tell you, that I'm not perfect. And I fail in plenty of ways and plenty of respects in terms of my performance as a father, but I will challenge anybody on this. One area where I seek to always excel as being a father and fulfilling my role is letting my sons know how much I love them. Letting them know how much I value them. Thank you. How much I value them, how much I want to invest myself and I am willing to give everything that I am to making them the men that God has called them to be. And I'm very proud of my sons. And this morning I wanted to look at Proverbs chapter 3 for a little bit, because I think it gives us some really good advice in what it means to be fathers, some really good advice on how to fulfill that role. And I know that we've got not just fathers here. Some of you here aren't fathers, and some of you may never be fathers, but it doesn't negate the role that you fill as a man in being who God has called you to be. And you don't biologically have to have your own children to be a father to somebody. Aren't you grateful that I mean, you look at the example God gave us. God gave us the example that while we were yet sinners, He loved us. And John, 1 John 3 says He's lavished His love on us and called us His sons and daughters. God has created men to fill a role in the lives of children, in the lives of our community, in the lives of the family that only men can fill. In the same way that only mothers can fill that role that God has called them to fill. And we've worked so hard to make everybody equal by making everybody the same that we have totally lost sight of the incredible gift of uniqueness that God has given us. And I'm not, I know there are those who struggle with all sorts of identity issues, and we live in a politically correct world that, says you can't say him or her or she or he or man or woman. But I'm telling you, no matter, the science is pretty specific. The DNA tests are pretty specific. The biology, the chromosome evidence is pretty specific. God has created us as men and women not the same, but equal. But the role that He's created us to fill, when we try to diminish that role, and we try to devalue that role, and we try to melt everybody down to make everybody the same, we are missing the incredible beauty of God's creation and who He's created us to be. There's a pattern I like in Proverbs 3, verses 1 through 12, and I think that this is very valuable. And in Proverbs, he speaks to my son, so I'm going to assume that Solomon is addressing some of this to men and who we are. And he says this in verse 1, "My son, do not forget my teaching, but keep my commands in your heart, for they will prolong your life many years and bring you peace and prosperity." The first thing that we see here, is God speaking through Solomon says, keep my teachings. Do what I tell you to do. Listen to the plan that I have for your life, because if you do, if you keep it in your mind and if you write it on your heart, it says it will bring you peace and prosperity. It will prolong your life. Think about the culture that we live in today, how much stress there is on people. Think of how much stress that we have in the culture we have. Now, we've been on lockdown and we're kind of reopening, And yesterday I was in Boardman, and we were driving around Boardman. I can tell you what, it was an interesting sort of dichotomy to be in Boardman 2 months ago at 3 or 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, and there was just very little traffic, very few cars. You can get in and out of there where you want to get. But yesterday, let me tell you, everyone was back out in full force. You know, Shelley and I were in Boardman one day this week, and some guy, Shelley was driving the van, and a guy called up, and he had a phrase for her. I can't repeat it, but he had a phrase for her, and he didn't like something about her driving, and it just instantly reminded me, everybody talking about a new normal? No, that just reminded me, okay, life's pretty much back to normal. Hurry, 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 get there, get it done, get mine, get out of my way, and life is just crept right back in. And the only way to have peace and prosperity is to not forget God's teaching, to allow His peace to prosper us and to give us and to prolong our life. He says this, let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck, write them on the tablet of your heart, then you will win favor and a good name in the sight of God and man. Let love and faithfulness never leave you. Think about that statement for just a moment. Think about how that has played out in our culture and our society. Let love and faithfulness never leave you. As a pastor, I get to be a part of a whole lot of weddings. And it's an amazing thing how two people can be so in love, but give them time, give them years, give them stress, give them difficult circumstances, give them the hardships of life, and love and faithfulness, committed to so fervently on that big day when I'm up front saying, do you take him? Do you take her? Will you be faithful? Will you love and will you cherish? Will you honor? And all that in time, we live in a culture where divorce rate is somewhere in the neighborhood of 50%. 50% of those relationships end. And those relationships will often go into other relationships, and a pretty good portion of those end. Let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck, and you will win favor with God and with mankind. Think of that. Let love and faithfulness. It's just sort of an amazing thing to me that we live in a culture, and I don't think this is new. I think it goes back to the Garden of Eden, where it's self above all else. You know, some people think that there's a fix for all this divorce. Just never get married. And maybe that'll be better. Maybe that'll be a better plan. Maybe that'll better be an option. Statistically speaking, it doesn't seem to be a better option, because if you live together and then get married, statistically speaking, you're more likely to get divorced. So why is that? Why live together than just marry somebody? Because you don't want to engage in a relationship with somebody you love and go all the way and make that big commitment of marriage in case it doesn't work out. What if I don't like them when we live together? What if I don't like the way their habits? I don't like the way they snore. What if I don't like the way they keep the house? What if I don't like the way they cook? Well, you don't want to go through all that hassle of being committed for life to somebody and go through the marriage only to find out that you don't really like them. And so one of the ways that we've tried to subjugate all this divorce rate is just never get married. But that's really a way of just saying, well, I love you, but I don't really trust you. So let me see if I can trust you enough to love you enough to go ahead and make that lifelong commitment. And what that does in the long haul, I believe, is just undermines the relationship from the get-go. It's not a statement that marriages won't last. But I always share that with my premarital counseling with people, because I want them to be aware. I'm trying to gear people that just because you spend a lot of time with somebody, and even live with somebody, you still don't know them. You don't know that what a commitment brings on you until you make the commitment. And if there's anybody been here married 30 plus years, you know as well as I do that when you get married, things change. You learn things. I think that was Ken that beat the horn, because he's still single right now. He can say what he wants. But things change, and I got news for you. That's not a bad thing. Shelley doesn't know fully who I am yet, because every day I change. And I'm ADD enough that I change every 10 seconds, right? That's Shelley, in case Shelley's beeping a horn. And in case you don't know it, that's a good thing, because then we never get to the end of knowing and growing and sharing and growing together. And as a God-called husband and father, my commitment is to never let my love or my faithfulness leave. Not for God, not for my wife, not for my children, not for the family that God has given me, all of you. Let love and faithfulness. And I think we live in a culture of faithfulness. People don't even know the meaning of the word. It's love, love, love. I love this, I love that, I love you, I love him, I love her, I love them, I love those, I love that. And yet the moment that it's inconvenient, the moment that it costs us something, the moment that it stresses us out, we're willing to sacrifice everything and every relationship we have for the sake of our own happiness. And I think that's a problem. We need fathers who will love their children's mothers and stay with them for life. I'm going to get in trouble. But I got to tell you, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops. Then your barns will be filled to overflowing. Your vats will brim over with new wine. My son, do not despise the Lord's discipline. Do not resent his rebuke, because the Lord disciplines those he loves. As a father, the son he delights in. We need fathers. We need good fathers. We need fathers who are in it for the long haul. What happens in a society where fathers aren't a part of their children's homes? Do you want to know the leading indicators for poor education, crime, time in prison, and poverty? Do you want to know the 4 leading indicators that a child born today will live that life for their future? Take a guess. What's the leading indicator that those things will be a part of that child's life? Being born out of wedlock. Being born without a father in the home. Being born to single mothers. And I listened to somebody, and this isn't me speaking politically, but I was speaking to someone who's lamenting this in her culture and in the minority group that she's a part of. And she says, we've incentivized mothers having children without fathers in the home. We'll pay you. We'll give you more money. The end result of that is you're laying on that child's future all these negative things that come when that child is raised in a home without both parents, without a father and a mother. Now that's not a political statement. That's not a judgment call. That is a sociologist statistic. That is a study of families, a study of human beings. And it says these are the things which are most likely to occur in that child's life when there's no father in the home. And you can say, well, the father's in their life. I'm a good dad. I get them every other weekend. I get them on, you know what? But ultimately, that still it just isn't God's design. And I'm not judging anybody. I've been really challenged lately. I try to walk a line and make everybody feel welcome and make everybody feel good. And these aren't judgment things, but these are realities. And if we don't begin to speak the truth about God's plan and God's design and what God desires, we're just going to get more of the same. And if you have families, I met a young man the other day who has 3 beautiful children. And he's very proud of his kids. All 3 of his kids. And all 3 of their mothers. Now, that's not a judgment call. And I'm sure they're wonderful kids, and I like this guy, and I like him, but I can't find anywhere where God says, here's a good idea, have 3 kids by 3 different mothers and try to make that work and give those kids the best future, the best opportunities, and the best life that you can give them. Folks, am I wrong? That's not in the Word. That's not in God's plan. That's not in His life. It's a reality, and God overcomes all those flaws and all those mistakes. And none of this is to make anybody feel bad about their past, but shouldn't we begin to teach our children, God's got a better plan than the one that we made for ourselves. Lean not into your own understanding. Lean not to your own appetites. Don't get yourself involved with somebody and commit yourself to have a child by somebody, dads, boys, young men, if you're not ready to raise that child, if you're not ready to love them for life, if you're not ready to give up your life to give them the future that God has for them, then don't go there. But we don't want to deny anybody. We don't want to make anybody feel guilty. We don't want to say those sort of things, man. Right? But the Word of God says God has a plan for fathers. And dads, let me tell you this. Now I'm really going to get to brass tacks. Fathers, quit excusing your lack of involvement in your child's life. Dads, quit letting your child's mother do all the work. First and foremost, let me tell you, fathers, this isn't going to get a lot of likes. Let me tell you, dads, your job is to be the spiritual leader in your child's life. I'm sorry. But if you can't drag your butt out of bed to get up and read the Word, or have a devotion, or go to church, or go to a life group, or make sure in your child's life they see the relationship that you have with God front and center every day. And if someone asks your child if you're a follower of Christ, if you're a Christian, if you read your Bible, if you pray, if they hear you pray, if they see you serving for Christ, if they see you giving for Christ, if they see you living for Christ, if your child can instantly, in a moment, without hesitation said, yeah, that's my dad, then men, then fathers were failing at our number one task. And we reap that in the communities that we live in. And we reap that and we lay that on the lives of our children. They shouldn't bear that burden. Fathers, love your kids by loving God and living that relationship with God as your father. Don't excuse yourself. Don't lay it on somebody else. Don't tell me the church doesn't offer the right programs for your teenager. Don't tell me the church doesn't offer the right program for your kids. You offer that spiritual influence. You offer that scriptural influence. You raise your children in the nurture and the admonition of the Lord. And if you are a man and you aren't willing to do that and sacrifice everything in your life to make that happen, then don't have the kid. Sorry, getting too close to home. Man must not buy the lie. Dads, I was hard on you. Yeah, I know. Because you know what? Men in this culture, this society have bought a lie. We're optional. We're optional. The only role we have is making it possible for there to be a kid. No. Don't buy the lie that you're optional, man. That you're optional, fathers. You are the living, breathing example to your children of what it means to know a heavenly Father. And the way that they can know you as their earthly Father leads them to their view and their perspective of what it means to have a heavenly Father and to know God and to know they're loved by God and to know the intimacy that He desires to have with them. Dads, you're not optional. No matter what Hollywood tells you, no matter what media tells you, no matter what the culture tells you, God has created the family to be a father and a mother, a husband and a wife, raising children who are a gift from the Lord. One of the things that frightens me more than anything else in the culture that we live in right now, I'm around a lot of, those 20 to 30-year-olds. They don't want children. At all. And why is that? Because children are inconvenient. Can I get a witness? Children are expensive. Can I get a witness? Children take your time. Children take your money. Children take your patience. Children take your good looks and your body. Children consume you. And it's the greatest thing you can ever know to be a parent. It's the greatest thing. As I look at Zoe and Jordan over here with that precious little life, I was over there last night. Everybody wants to know, what could be more valuable? What greater gift could you give than to have that child and to say, hey, God's given me this gift to care for, to nurture, to raise, to see this child grow. And what greater gift can you have for Dawson to grow, to know God, and for Brad and Ashley to raise Dawson to be a follower of Jesus Christ, and to have this incredible view of God because he got an incredible view of his dad. And he says, if my dad is like this, then our Heavenly Father is even better, then how much better can it be? I fear for a culture that doesn't value fatherhood and doesn't value the family. You want to know some of the statistics in the world that we live in? The birth rate in America, we're not having children at a rate faster than we're dying. You want to know how drastically things like birth rate can affect a community? African American community today makes up 13% of the population in America, 13%. Since Roe versus Wade in 1973, since legalized abortion and organizations like Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood puts their clinics predominantly in inner city, low income, poverty-stricken neighborhoods, predominantly. And if you add up the number of young African American babies taken from this world in their mother's womb, and you put every one of those lives in a category and you add them up, had they been born since 1973, the current minority population of African Americans in America would be 30%. 30%. That means 17% of an entire people group has been obliterated from existence because of legalized abortion. Isn't that an amazing thing? Doesn't that cause your jaw to drop? Isn't it amazing how we've begun to devalue as a community and as a society? Not only have we devalued fatherhood, not only have we devalued motherhood, we devalued life itself so much that we will sacrifice children through abortion, or sacrifice the lives of children by never wanting to conceive them. For what? To feed these lives? To feed these appetites so we can have nicer cars and nicer homes and nicer vacations and bigger 401ks and bigger retirement funds? And what happens to all that when you die? What happens to all that, dads, when you leave this world? What happens to all that men and women who don't want to have children? Everything you spent your entire life working to build just goes to somebody else who didn't work a day for it. And you have nothing that you've left to make the world, the future, a better place. I don't know about you, but it seems upside down to me. That seems to me like it's out of place somehow or another. God has created men and women in his image, and the roles of both in building strong and healthy families and communities are essential. You know, we have a good Father who's created us to be good fathers. I know I've been harsh, I know I've been rough, but I gotta tell you, I don't know how much more of the world I can take without speaking up, without beginning to voice my opinion. There's an old saying that says what? In order for evil to succeed, good men and women need only do nothing. Need only say nothing. Need only sit back, mind my own business, don't create the tension. Folks, if we don't begin to speak up, if we don't begin to share our voices, and I gotta tell you this, don't go out on Facebook and start spouting off a bunch of stuff. Start looking somebody in the eye and having a conversation. But I'm going to tell you right now, all this mess that we're in and all this chaos and all this hate and all this division, it's really easy to sit at a computer or to hold your phone and call somebody all sorts of vile names and say all sorts of vile things about people groups or people or politicians. It's really easy to do until you look them in the eye. If you can't look somebody in the eye and tell them what you think about them, then you certainly shouldn't write it on a social media post. That's the problem. We call it social media, and really it's antisocial. We've allowed the culture to dictate entire attitudes of our nation based on what? Posts and writings and tweets and likes and videos and saying we've lost the art of engaging with human beings as human beings. And when you lose the reality of flesh and blood human beings, then everybody else becomes non-essential and easy to cancel out. Fathers, it's time for us to rise up and be godly men, godly fathers, to love truth, to love justice, to love and be faithful, to obey God's commands, to allow Him to discipline us, to look into His Word as a mirror and reflect our lives, and to allow God to say, Jan, you need to apologize to your sons. Hey, Jan, you need to apologize to the church. Hey, Jan, you need to change this in your life. You need to do this. To allow God to rebuke me and know that He's not beating me up. He's letting me know I'm His son and He loves me and He wants the very best for me. Dads, I hope you know, the whole point of this message was to tell you how incredibly valuable you are and to encourage you to rise up and to take responsibility to be the godly fathers, godly husbands, godly brothers, godly uncles and friends and mentors that God has called you to be. We need now more than ever for men to not abdicate their responsibility, but to rise up, to stand up, and to not be ashamed to be a man of God who is willing to be responsible and who's willing to be obedient to God's call in our lives. Would you join me for prayer? Fathers, God, may the fathers in this hearing my voice know the love in my heart for them. Know the love that I have is because you've called us to such an incredible challenge. God, you've called us to such an incredible role to be men of faith, to be men of honor, to be men of valor, to be men who aren't ashamed, to be noble and heroic, who aren't ashamed and aren't willing to abdicate our responsibility to our children or to our families or to our neighbor or to our culture or to our society or to the nation that you've allowed us to call our home, Lord. May we just get beyond all this division. May we get beyond focusing on what we think we need and begin to look to you and ask for you to show us, to reveal to us what it means to follow your word, to know your truth, to love your truth, to value your truth, to mold us, to shape us, to bring us into the fullness of the representation of your Son, Jesus Christ, on earth as he is in heaven, Lord. May we not shrink back from this call. May we not shrink back from this responsibility, Lord. But may we, as men of God, consider it all joy. May we consider ourselves blessed when we're reviled, blessed when we're insulted, blessed when we're persecuted for your name's sake. May we quit defending ourselves. May we quit trying to promote ourselves, and may we raise you up in these lives, that our children would look to us and be drawn to you, O Heavenly Father. May they see in us the Son of God who calls them by name, calls them to know you, to love you, to know life, know redemption through your grace. Father, may those who've heard my words today know none of them are spoken in judgment. None of them are spoken in harshness or unforgiveness. All the words I speak, Lord, I desire that you would hide me behind the cross and that those who hear my words would hear your voice speaking to them. Father, may we not settle for less. May we not excuse why life isn't as it should be and sort of write off our responsibility. May we say, no, I'll not settle for less than being a man of God, than being a father of God, being the father that God has called me to be, being the husband that God has called me to be, being the brother that God has called me to be, the son that God has called me to be, the uncle, the mentor, the friend that God has called me to be. Lord, raise up a generation of godly men. And may those of us who are here in the forefront right now, may our lives lead the example for them, that they would follow in our footsteps, and every step would lead them closer to you, deeper in their relationship with you, to be conformed more every day to your very image as sons called by you. Lord, we love you this day. We give you the thanks for this time, opportunity to be together. Thank you for this beautiful day. Help us as we prepare over the next couple of weeks to begin celebrating in our new space, gathering space that you have provided for us. Thank you for all the hard work of those who sacrificed so much. May this place just become a center for the community where men and women and boys and girls can come and that they would know, Lord, not because of the building, not because of the space, not because of the real, but they would know because of the body of the family that they find here. They would know your love. They would be drawn to you. And this community would be a stronger community because we are saying, God, here's the tools you've given us. Here's the community center of one building. Use it as you see fit to draw others to yourself. We just love you this day. We give you the thanks. We give you the praise. We give you the glory and the honor. Keep us safe as we go throughout this week and help us every day to look for new opportunities to meet together as the body of Christ and to encourage each other, to spur one another on to love the good deeds. And may we pray this day as you taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. 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 God bless you. Thank you for coming today. Oh, VBS sign. Yes. We are having a VBS coming up July 27th through the 31st. Please know that it's going to be in the flesh right here. And we're inviting people in the community to come and bring their children. So if you want to be a part of this, see Nancy Gamble, send her a text or send her an email. And we're going to need workers and helpers and all that. Next Sunday will be our last drive-in Sunday until we do it again. But 2 weeks from today, we will be worshiping together in the remodeled worship center, the gathering place upstairs. So God bless you. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you soon. Take these signs and put them in your yard. Yeah, they're up here so you can take them, actually. So if you want to take a sign and advertise, take a sign. And if you're watching online, come by the church. I'll leave them outside underneath the awning for the rest of the day today, so you can come and get one if you're convenient. God bless you. We love you. See you soon. Peace and grace from our Lord Jesus Christ.